Imagine a moonlit sky above the shimmering Mediterranean Sea, the hum of an opulent yacht party echoing across tranquil waters. Guests in designer attire sip vintage champagne, completely unaware of the storm looming just beyond the harbor. A stunning woman eyes blazing steps onto the deck at precisely the wrong moment, or perhaps the right one. She's on a mission for truth, her heart a mix of fury and heartbreak. In a single dramatic instant, the world of a powerful millionaire, Jonathan Ashford, is about to come crashing down. The secret scandals and ultimate downfall will leave everyone gasping for air. Jonathan Ashford was never meant to blend into the background. Born to middle-class parents in a quiet London suburb, he spent his childhood imagining a life of absolute grandeur. While his mates played football in dusty alleys, Jonathan devoured books on finance and success. At the age of 16, he told his bewildered father that he'd become a millionaire before he was 30. Of course, no one believed him until he turned 29 and unveiled an online real estate investment platform that skyrocketed his net worth practically overnight. His relentless ambition caught the eye of top investors, including the illustrious Robert Townsend, a veteran in the property game whose name was synonymous with prestige. Townsend introduced Jonathan to a circle of elite businessmen, each with their own corners of influence. Though it felt intoxicating to be in such powerful company, Jonathan's measured confidence and unwavering focus made him stand out. Within a year, he had forged partnerships that dwarfed his early success, and soon he was on the path to becoming one of Britain's youngest multimillionaires. But Jonathan's story wasn't just about financial success. He had charm. A confident stride, a disarming half-smile, and a sharp mind that could dissect a balance sheet in seconds. Most people who encountered him whispered about his uncanny ability to sense opportunity and exploit it to its fullest. Yet for all his skill in forging deals, one of his greatest achievements was convincing a woman named Helena Carpenter, a poised, elegant art curator from Oxford, to become his wife. Helena was unlike the usual women in Jonathan's orbit. Where so many strove for glamour and recognition, Helena was more content to quietly immerse herself in canvases and sculptures. She could discuss 18th-century painters and modern graffiti artists with the same enthusiasm, and her refined sensibility balanced Jonathan's aggressive financial pursuits. If he was the strategic hustler chasing wealth and status in a cutthroat world, she was the refuge, calm, nurturing, and deeply intellectual. Their wedding was the talk of the season. Guests sipped on 30-year-old scotch and feasted on the most decadent French cuisine. The newlyweds were hailed as the perfect pair. She brought sophistication and compassion, and he brought ambition and wealth. That union seemed unstoppable, like two forces of nature entwined for greatness. However, beneath the dazzle and adoration, Helena's world was a quiet space of self-reflection. She had married Jonathan out of love, yes, but also out of fascination with his fierce determination. In turn, he admired her cultured worldview. Over time, her unwavering support gave him an incredible springboard to focus on bigger expansions, riskier investments, and all-consuming pursuits that devoured their time together. It was subtle at first. Jonathan would miss dinners, then anniversaries. The gentle hush of their Oxford flat turned into the distant hum of private jets and hotel rooms in New York, Milan, or Hong Kong. Helena, initially understanding, found herself increasingly isolated in her own home. And Jonathan, though he'd always showered her with luxurious gifts and heartfelt apologies, was too driven to notice the rift widening day by day. Still, Helena believed it was just a phase. Success, like Jonathan's, demanded sacrifices. "He'll come around," she told herself. "He loves me." And so she waited her faith in him, steadfast, hoping that once the dust of his booming career settled, they'd finally enjoy the stability and closeness she craved. It was a golden time until the facade began to crack. She couldn't pinpoint the exact moment it all changed, but she'd later recall small signs: the unfamiliar cologne wafting off his suits, the half-smudged lipstick mark on a shirt collar. He was too distracted to notice the suspicious texts that made his phone buzz late into the night. Red flags started popping up everywhere, planting seeds of doubt in Helena's mind. Though her heart pounded with suspicion, Helena told herself it was all in her head. Jonathan was simply a magnet for female attention. Success had a way of drawing admirers like moths to a flame. She tried to reassure herself that her husband was faithful, that he wouldn't risk their bond. She repeated it like a mantra whenever she felt unsettled. He wouldn't betray me. Yet those seeds of doubt quietly took root, and soon Helena's heart would lead her down a path of painful discovery. Their lives, once so perfectly aligned, were set on a collision course that would rock not only their marriage, but also the glittering empire Jonathan had so meticulously built. Helena's first inkling of real trouble came one morning when she checked their joint account. She hated prying into the finances. Jonathan always handled them, but the request for a major museum donation had landed on her plate as part of a philanthropic project she was coordinating. She needed to ensure the funds were there, and of course they should be. Except the balance was unexpectedly low. Alarms rang in her mind. Where was all the money going? Jonathan regularly made large transactions for property deals, but he always informed Helena of big moves, if only to keep her in the loop. This time there had been no mention, no courtesy heads up. She closed her laptop, heart thumping. She didn't want to overreact, but resolved to have a candid conversation with him that evening. That night Jonathan breezed in late, but Helena found him in the study, his tie loosened, swirling a glass of whiskey. The usual shadows under his eyes seemed deeper, and the strain in his voice was evident as he greeted her. She gently broached the topic of the missing funds. His response was dismissive at best. "Big expansion in Berlin," he said, not meeting her gaze. "I'll have the details soon. Don't worry about it." He offered no further explanation, and Helena, not wanting to spark an argument, let the subject drop. But the anxiety gnawing at her only intensified. 2 days later, she received a call from an old friend, Joanna Pierce, who worked as an auction specialist. Joanna mentioned seeing Jonathan in a swanky restaurant with a stunning brunette, describing the scene as intimate. Helena's ears burned. She forced a laugh, telling Joanna she must be mistaken, but she could hardly keep her voice steady. "He's got so many business associates," Helena rationalized. "That must be it. A business dinner, nothing more." Yet that haunting feeling refused to subside. Helena decided to confide in an unexpected ally, Andrew "Andy" Harrington, Jonathan's close friend and business partner. Andy had been around since Jonathan's earliest days, and while his loyalties lay with Jonathan, he also cared for Helena like a sister. She caught him at the end of a gallery event and asked if he could spare a moment. They met at a quiet cafe near the gallery. Helena recounted her suspicions about the missing funds, the late-night phone calls, the rumors, and watched Andy's face turn grave. "Look, Helena, I'd be lying if I said I haven't noticed a change in him," Andy confessed. "He's distracted, takes calls at odd hours, steps out in the middle of negotiations. It's strange." But he paused, obviously torn between honesty and loyalty to Jonathan. "We don't have any proof, and Jonathan is known for making quick deals. Still, if you feel uneasy, maybe it's best you talk to him directly, or consider a private investigator." The conversation left Helena with a swirl of conflicting emotions. She hated the idea of spying on her husband, yet the fears in her mind refused to die. She could no longer fully trust Jonathan's evasive explanations, so she decided on a middle ground. An attempt at open communication one last time before taking a more drastic step. But that night Jonathan came home later than ever, reeking of expensive perfume that definitely wasn't hers. When Helena gently prodded him for conversation, he brushed her off, saying he was exhausted. She noticed how he gingerly placed his phone face down on the nightstand. Her eyes flicked to it momentarily, and he caught her stare. "Trying to read my messages now," he snapped, an edge to his voice she hadn't heard before. She felt stung. "I just want to talk, Jonathan, and I just want to rest." He turned away from her, lights off, and that was that. The weight of her suspicions kept Helena awake, staring at the ceiling for hours. She realized, heart pounding with dread, that the man beside her was becoming a stranger. The next day, while Jonathan was out on business, Helena quietly called a private investigator, recommended by Andy, someone discreet, a man named John Davis. She needed concrete answers for the sake of her sanity, if nothing else. John Davis was professional and kind, listening intently to Helena's concerns before agreeing to take on the case. "I'll find the truth," he told her gently, "whatever it may be. Just be prepared for any possibility." For the next few weeks, Helena felt like she was living a double life. She smiled and attended her gallery events, politely feigned interest at dinner parties, and pretended nothing was amiss in her marriage. Meanwhile, John Davis sent her periodic text updates that made her heart thunder. Photographs of Jonathan heading into exclusive clubs with the same woman. Bank statements referencing suspicious transfers. Records of lavish gifts, jewelry designer handbags sent to an unknown address. It was real. Her worst fears tangible and undeniable. Helena sat alone in her study staring at proof of her husband's betrayal, tears streaking her cheeks. Her body felt numb, her mind roaring in disbelief. The man she had adored, the man who once said he'd do anything for her, was funneling money into an affair. In that moment, she felt an odd calm wash over her. She wasn't going to give in to despair, not yet. She would confront him on her own terms. She would gather her composure and face the truth. My marriage might be a lie, she thought, but I won't be a victim. 2 weeks after hiring the investigator, Helena's phone buzzed with an unexpected text from Jonathan Bignight. "Yacht party in the Mediterranean with potential investors. Be ready to leave by Thursday." No apologies for the last-minute notice, no courtesy to check her schedule. Just a command, cold and impersonal. Helena felt a flicker of anger. Then John Davis contacted her with fresh intel. Jonathan was not only hosting a business gathering, but was rumored to bring along a special guest. The Mistress, Clarissa Knight, an ex-model turned Instagram influencer with a dubious reputation for chasing wealthy men, would be in attendance. Documents showed that Jonathan had arranged a lavish suite for her. At the same time, he had neglected to mention this trip in any of his conversations with Helena. This was the last straw. Helena decided she would join him all right, but on her own terms. She would no longer remain in the dark. For years she had turned the other cheek, trusting him, making excuses for him. Now an undercurrent of quiet rage propelled her forward. She'd see the affair with her own eyes and decide her next move accordingly. On Thursday morning she boarded the private plane in silence. Jonathan flashed her a perfunctory smile, barely making eye contact. As they settled into the plush leather seats, Helena studied him. He looked exhausted, yet oddly elated, as if anticipating something thrilling at the end of the journey. She clenched her fists, fighting the urge to confront him right then and there. But she wanted the truth witnessed by the people who had always sung his praises, and possibly by Clarissa herself. The flight was painfully silent. Jonathan scrolled through his phone occasionally, letting out small chuckles as he texted someone. No doubt Helena thought, her stomach churning. She forced herself to look out the window, focusing on the cotton candy clouds and the infinite sky, wondering how her perfect life had spiraled into such a twisted mess. Upon landing in Nice, France, they were whisked away by a black limousine to the marina where Jonathan's yacht, the Golden Dawn, was docked. Its gleaming exterior was a testament to his wealth, a pristine, three-decked spectacle that screamed opulence. Crew members in crisp uniforms helped Helena aboard, offering champagne and welcomes. She smiled politely, scanning the deck for any sign of Clarissa. None yet. Jonathan quickly excused himself, saying he had to finalize some logistics with the yacht's captain. That left Helena alone on the top deck, warm sun glistening off the azure water. She breathed in the sea breeze and let the tension in her shoulders momentarily ease. It struck her as bitterly ironic this was supposed to be the lifestyle they had dreamed of, sharing exotic trips, luxurious parties, a life only a few could imagine. Yet standing here, she felt more alone than ever. Over the next few hours, guests poured in: business moguls from Berlin, socialites from London, a sprinkling of minor celebrities looking to latch on to the newest financial sensation. Helena recognized some faces from previous events, though the guest list seemed far more extravagant this time. Clinking glasses, polite laughter, and idle chatter set the stage for what Jonathan intended: a brilliant show of wealth and power that would seal the next big deal. As night fell, the yacht set sail along the French Riviera. The party escalated, music pumping through hidden speakers, the dance floor filling with elegantly dressed attendees. Waiters circulated with hors d'oeuvres and champagne, and the entire upper deck shimmered under strings of fairy lights. It felt magical in a way, but for Helena, every glittering corner felt laced with lies. She watched Jonathan weave through the crowd, shaking hands, exchanging jokes, exuding the charm she once found irresistible. Then, amidst the throng, Helena caught sight of a woman tall, statuesque, with dark flowing hair. She wore a sleek figure-hugging gown that left little to the imagination. Helena's heart pounded. There was Clarissa Knight leaning in conspiratorially as Jonathan whispered something into her ear. It was unmistakable, the intimacy of their posture, the way Clarissa placed a manicured hand on his shoulder, the sly smiles they exchanged. For a moment, Helena's vision blurred with rage tears threatening to spill. She steadied herself. This was her moment of truth, and she would not back down. She had endured enough lies and humiliations. With a deep breath, she navigated through the crowd, heading straight toward them. The hour of reckoning had arrived. The music was thunderous, reverberating through Helena's chest as she inched closer. Guests danced, swayed, and gossiped, but Helena's focus was narrowed to two people standing near the yacht's lavish curved staircase, Jonathan and Clarissa. Her breathing became ragged, her pulse an unrelenting drumbeat in her ears. Jonathan, caught in mid-laugh, froze when he saw Helena closing in. Clarissa turned glass in hand, eyebrows raised in mild curiosity. To the onlookers, Helena must have looked every bit the poised socialite chin, held high posture elegant. But inside, she was a tempest of hurt, betrayal, and anger. She stopped inches away from the pair. Jonathan found his voice first. "Helena," he said too brightly. "I was just what Helena cut him off, her voice low and trembling with restraint. "Entertaining your investors, showing off your assets." Her gaze flicked to Clarissa, who gave a condescending smirk as though Helena were an intruder at her own husband's party. Clarissa stepped forward, swirling her champagne. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her tone dripping with feigned innocence. Helena's jaw tightened. "Yes, actually," she replied curtly. "I'd like a word with my husband." "Alone." By now a few heads had turned curious about the brewing confrontation. Jonathan glanced around, clearly uncomfortable. He leaned in to whisper, "Helena, don't do this here." His words ignited her fury. "Don't do what?" "Address. The fact that you've been funneling our money to finance your mistress's lifestyle, that you've lied to me, humiliated me, and dragged me onto this yacht to watch you two flaunt yourselves." At this, several nearby guests gasped or exchanged alarmed looks. The music continued, but a bubble of silence formed around them. Clarissa's smug expression faltered. Jonathan's face darkened. This was not the polished, controlled environment he cherished. This was chaos, and it was happening in front of potential investors, close friends, and curious onlookers. "Helena, lower your voice," Jonathan hissed, grabbing her arm. She yanked it free, adrenaline fueling her courage. "No. I've been silent for too long, Jonathan. Tell everyone here who Clarissa is to you." Clarissa let out a soft chuckle, stepping closer to Jonathan. "Jonathan, darling, maybe you should calm your wife down. She seems hysterical." The words dripped with arrogance. Helena wheeled on Clarissa, her voice rising. "If you think you're walking away unscathed, you're mistaken. You've waltzed into my marriage, played with my life as though it was some kind of social media spectacle. But I promise you this is one show you won't control." A hush fell over the deck. People parted like a tide, giving the trio space. Jonathan, typically so confident, looked cornered, desperate. He raised his voice, attempting to regain composure. "Everyone, please, let's not ruin the evening. This is a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Helena repeated, her eyes aflame. "Is that what you call months of deception? I have the receipts, Jonathan, the private investigators' photos, the mysterious transactions. the hotel bills, everything. She rummaged in her clutch, pulling out a small sheaf of papers. Care to explain these? She flung them at his feet. Clarissa eyed the papers warily while Jonathan's face morphed from anger to something akin to panic. Onlookers craned their necks to see. Robert Townsend, Jonathan's esteemed investor, stepped forward, a baffled expression on his face. Jonathan? What is she talking about? Helena's voice rang out clear as a bell, cutting through the music. Your golden boy here has been squandering our marital assets on an affair. And I, Helena Ashford, have had enough. She spun around to face Clarissa. And as for you, whatever hold you have on him, understand this. I'm not the meek wife you thought would just vanish. You're both accountable for this travesty. Tension vibrated through the crowd. Clarissa started to speak, but Jonathan silenced her with a cold glare. Instead, he tried to reason with Helena. Let's go somewhere private. Talk it out. We can fix this. She stared at him, stunned by how effortlessly he glossed over the betrayal. Fix this? You can't fix something you've shattered beyond repair. Her eyes brimmed with tears, but her voice remained unwavering. Jonathan, I believed in us. I gave up so much for you, my time, my energy, my faith. I stood by you through every risky gamble. But this, she gestured to Clarissa and the decadent setting, this is unforgivable. The circle of guests tightened, some pulling out phones, capturing the confrontation. Helena didn't care. She wanted the world to see the real Jonathan Ashford, the man who valued image above all else, who would betray his wife and humiliate her in public without a shred of remorse. She took a step back, tears finally slipping down her cheeks. I won't be a part of your lie anymore. Enjoy your little party. Enjoy your mistress. Because by sunrise, I'm filing for divorce. That single word, divorce, rang out like a gunshot. Jonathan's face fell. Clarissa swallowed visibly, her bravado waning in the face of this public meltdown. In the stunned stillness that followed, Helena turned on her heel and marched away, head held high, her heart pounding like a war drum. Guests parted, giving her a wide berth as she walked. She could hear hushed whispers, felt the judgmental stares, but she refused to cower. Behind her, Jonathan called her name, but she did not turn. She felt the night air sting her tear-streaked face as she headed for her cabin. The show might be over for now, but the fallout was just beginning. In the aftermath of that explosive confrontation, Helena retreated to the privacy of her cabin, her body trembling with a whirlwind of emotions. She flicked on a soft lamp beside the bed and caught her reflection in the mirror. Mascara, smudged eyes, red-rimmed. She barely recognized the woman staring back at her. The party above deck carried on, albeit in a subdued fashion. The music no longer thundered. Instead, it played a polite background tune, as if attempting to pretend that nothing dramatic had happened. But Helena knew better. Everyone on that yacht would be abuzz with gossip. She could only imagine the rumors that would soon flood social media and tabloids. As she sank onto the bed, she took a moment to confront her emotions. Sorrow, anger, betrayal, and an odd sense of liberation. For so long she'd been sleepwalking through her marriage, brushing aside suspicion and pain, wanting to preserve an image of the relationship she'd cherished. Now all illusions were shattered. She had laid bare Jonathan's betrayal in public with no chance to take it back. A part of her felt oddly empowered. She had chosen truth over pretense. Her phone buzzed. A text from Andy Harrington. Are you okay? I'm here if you need to talk. She replied with trembling fingers. I'm fine. Thank you, Andy. She appreciated the concern, but she was far from fine. Still, she needed to be alone. Moments later, another knock came on her cabin door. She hesitated. Then gingerly she opened it, expecting to see Jonathan. Instead, there stood Robert Townsend, his distinguished silver hair, slightly disheveled concern etched on his face. He gave a courteous nod. Helena, he began softly. May I come in? She hesitated, but ultimately stepped aside. Robert entered, glancing around the cabin before settling on a nearby chair. Helena remained standing, arms crossed protectively. "I'm sorry to intrude," he said. "I just wanted to check on you." "And?" He paused, swallowing. "I wanted to say that if what you said is true, well, let's just say I'm disappointed in Jonathan. On a personal and professional level." Helena eyed him warily. "I don't know what he's told you, Robert. But yes, it's all true. I hired a private investigator. I have proof." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I believe you, Helena. Jonathan's always been ambitious, but I never imagined he'd jeopardize everything, his marriage, his professional reputation, like this." Her shoulders sagged in relief. "Thank you for believing me. I understand you plan to file for divorce." She nodded, silent tears threatening again. "I can't stay in this. I can't live a lie." Robert looked thoughtful. "I respect that. Just know if you need any assistance, legal advice, or help back in England, I'll do what I can. Jonathan, well, he and I have business ties, but that doesn't mean I condone what he's done." He paused, voice gentle. "I'm truly sorry you had to go through this." Touched by his sincerity, Helena forced a weak smile. "Thank you." He stood, patting her shoulder. "Try to get some rest, Helena. Tomorrow this yacht will dock and you can do what you need to. The next steps might be difficult, but you're stronger than you know." After Robert left, Helena locked the door, leaning against it for support. She stared at the scattered papers that had fallen from her purse, documents outlining Jonathan's deceit. So much evidence of a crumbled marriage. She picked them up and placed them neatly on a small table, telling herself that come morning she'd figure out the logistics. For now she needed sleep, a momentary escape from reality. But sleep wouldn't come easily. Her mind reeled with images, Jonathan whispering into Clarissa's ear, the horrified looks on their guests' faces, the heartbreak in her own reflection. She curled up on the bed, hugging a pillow. In time, exhaustion won out, and she drifted into a restless slumber. The next morning brought a cold clarity. The yacht had docked in Monte Carlo. Helena woke up groggy and unprepared for the day, but resolved to leave as soon as possible. She stepped out of the cabin, luggage in hand, and was startled to find Jonathan waiting in the corridor, shadows under his eyes telling her he'd probably slept no better than she had. He raised a hand in a placating gesture. "Helena, please, let's talk." Her throat tightened. "We talked enough last night, Jonathan. I'm done." He grimaced. "I know I messed up, all right. I was stupid, reckless. But we can figure this out. You don't have to." She bristled, voice cracking with anger and hurt. "Don't tell me what I have to do. Do you know how humiliating it was to find out from a third party that my husband is cheating? To realize half our money is going to some woman I've never met? To stand on that deck last night and confront you in front of everyone?" She shook her head, tears brimming. "I can't forgive that. Not anymore." He stepped closer, but she retreated. "Helena, I regret it. I was caught up in the thrill, the image, the ego. I never meant to hurt you like this." She gave a humorless laugh, tears spilling over. "Is that supposed to make me feel better? Because it doesn't." Behind them, the corridor was empty, and the hush felt oppressively claustrophobic. She brushed past him, resolute. "Goodbye, Jonathan. I'm leaving." She didn't wait for a response, storming down the hallway and onto the deck. The sun was blazing over Monte Carlo's lavish skyline, but Helena barely noticed. She felt hollowed out, as though the very foundation of her life had crumbled. Yet amid the devastation she detected a faint spark of resilience. She was free from illusions, free from compromise. What happened next was up to her. Without a backward glance, she departed the yacht. Each step onto the solid ground felt simultaneously agonizing and liberating. She was alone in a foreign city, weighed down by emotional wreckage, yet unburdened by lies. And though the road ahead was uncertain, Helena knew one thing for sure: she would rebuild with or without Jonathan Ashford. Helena secured a suite at a 5-star hotel in Monte Carlo. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was using the fortune built upon Jonathan's success to distance herself from him. As she slipped into the plush bed that evening, staring at the opulent ceiling, she felt torn between heartbreak and grim determination. She knew what needed to be done. The marriage was over. Now came the legal battle. The next day, Helena was bombarded with calls and texts, some from concerned friends, others from nosy acquaintances fishing for scandal. Even the press had gotten wind of the dramatic confrontation on the yacht, with tabloids printing sensational headlines, "Mogul's wife exposes infidelity at $1 million soiree." She ignored them all, focusing on a single mission: taking control of her life and the assets that rightfully belonged to her. She reached out to a top-tier divorce attorney, Maria Quinn, someone recommended by Robert Townsend. Maria, a sharp-witted woman with a reputation for playing hardball, wasted no time. Over a series of Zoom calls and document exchanges, they prepared the necessary legal paperwork. Maria cautioned Helena that Jonathan would likely try to settle quickly. His public image would be at stake. Indeed, just 3 days later, Helena received a frantic call from Jonathan. She hesitated before answering, but curiosity got the better of her. "Helena," he said, voice tense, "the tabloids are going insane. Investors are questioning my judgment. Let's handle this quietly. I'm prepared to offer a fair settlement." She was silent for a moment, feeling the swirl of conflicting emotions. She recalled the times they laughed together, supported each other, built a life. But she also remembered Clarissa's smug face, the lies, the betrayal. "That's not for you to decide alone, Jonathan," she finally replied, voice even. "Talk to my lawyer." He sighed, exasperated. "Why are you doing this so publicly? Think about your reputation." A bitter laugh escaped her lips. "My reputation? You should have thought about that before you started flaunting your affair. Don't try to guilt-trip me. This is on you." She ended the call, heart hammering. She sat there, phone in hand, until the screen went dark. This was real. The illusions of marital bliss were gone, replaced by a steely resolve. Meanwhile, Monte Carlo proved a surprisingly peaceful place to process her pain. Between legal consultations, Helena found solace in long walks by the marina, letting the sea breeze clear her mind. The sparkle of the Mediterranean reminded her that life could still hold beauty even when one's heart was wounded. Days turned into a week. Helena's lawyer and Jonathan's team exchanged countless emails, eventually hammering out a preliminary settlement. Jonathan wanted to keep the scandal contained. Helena simply wanted her due and a clean break. However, just as the negotiations seemed close to a resolution, Helena received an unexpected visitor in her hotel lobby, Clarissa Knight. Helena almost did a double-take when she saw Clarissa striding across the polished marble floor. The woman looked glamorous as always, clad in designer sunglasses and a chic black dress. She approached with a click of her high heels, a predatory feline grace in her stride. "I'd like to speak with you," Clarissa said, removing her sunglasses. Helena studied her, taking in the flawless makeup and confident posture. What could we possibly have to say to each other? Clarissa's smile was icy. "Oh, a lot. You see, Jonathan and I are done." She shrugged nonchalantly. "He's lost everything, his dignity, public favor, and soon a chunk of his fortune. He's not the man I thought he was." Helena felt a wave of disgust. "So you came here to gloat, or to rub it in my face that you had him first?" Clarissa shook her head, hair swishing elegantly. "I don't care about him anymore, but I do care about my reputation. This entire fiasco has labeled me a homewrecker. And your display on that yacht, it was quite the spectacle. You took me by surprise." She tilted her head, a glint in her eye. "I respect that." Helena stiffened, taken aback by the unexpected compliment. "I don't need your respect. You're the one who walked into my marriage knowingly." Clarissa shrugged again. "Jonathan told me you were practically separated, that your relationship was loveless. I believed him, and yes, I was looking for a powerful partner. I've never denied that. But it seems we were both deceived by Jonathan in different ways." Helena crossed her arms. "So, what do you want?" Clarissa let out a slow breath. Look, as far as I'm concerned, Jonathan Ashford is a sinking ship. I'm off to find my next opportunity. But I wanted to say this to your face, you deserve better than him. And from one woman to another, I'm sorry. The apology hung in the air, fragile and unexpected. Helena wasn't sure whether to believe it, but she sensed a hint of sincerity in Clarissa's guarded gaze. She nodded stiffly. I won't forgive you, but I can appreciate your honesty now. Clarissa placed her sunglasses back on her polished mask of confidence, sliding into place. Take care of yourself, Helena. If you're half as strong as you were on that yacht, you'll come out of this just fine. And with that, Clarissa turned and strutted out of the lobby, leaving Helena to ponder the bizarre conversation. In a twisted way, the meeting gave her closure. She realized she was truly done with Jonathan's circus of deceit, and she was ready for the next phase of her life on her own terms. Back in London, Helena stepped off the plane with mixed emotions. The city that once felt like home now felt alien. She was returning not as Jonathan Ashford's wife, but as the woman who publicly cast him aside. She pulled her coat tighter around her, the familiar chill biting at her cheeks. Within hours, she was sitting in the office of Maria Quinn, finalizing divorce documents. It turned out Jonathan was indeed eager to settle. His public image had taken a battering, and he didn't want a protracted legal war. Helena had insisted on a fair share of their jointly accrued assets plus a sizable compensation for the betrayal and misconduct. Maria assured her they had a strong case, and the negotiations proceeded swiftly. During a brief recess in the meeting with Jonathan's legal team, Helena found herself alone in the hallway with her soon-to-be ex-husband. He looked thinner, more haggard, his usual polished veneer cracked. For a fleeting moment she pitied him. "Are you really sure there's no going back?" Jonathan asked softly, hands shoved into his suit pockets. Helena exhaled slowly. "This isn't about me being stubborn. You betrayed me, Jonathan. You broke every vow we made. There's no trust left." He lowered his gaze, silent. She could see regret flickering in his eyes, but it was too little too late. The final round of paperwork took less than an hour. Jonathan signed with a shaky hand, as though physically affected by the gravity of this moment. Helena felt oddly calm, each signature bringing her a step closer to independence. At the last flick of her pen, it was done. They were strangers with a legal contract severing their ties. Walking out of the law firm's towering building, Helena inhaled the crisp London air. The city was ablaze with midday bustle, taxis, red double-deckers, and rushing crowds. She felt an overwhelming sense of relief interspersed with a pang of sadness. This was the end of one chapter and the uncertain beginning of another. She met Andy Harrington for coffee that afternoon. He gave her a warm hug. "So, it's official." She managed a soft smile. "Yes, we're divorced." They found a corner table by the window. Andy, never one for small talk, jumped straight to the point. "I've severed my business ties with Jonathan too," he admitted. "Couldn't continue after everything that happened. Plus our major investors lost faith in him. I've gone independent, focusing on smaller ventures. It's better for my conscience." Helena nodded, sipping her latte. "I appreciate that, Andy. I'm sorry you lost a friend in all this." He shook his head. "He's the one who chose this path. Don't apologize." Then he looked at her kindly. "What about you? Any plans for the future?" She mulled over the question. For so long her identity had been tied to Jonathan. His career, his ambitions, his life. But now she realized she had the means and freedom to pursue her own dreams. "I think I'll expand my work in the art world. Maybe open my own gallery." She paused, eyes sparkling with newfound determination. "I have the connections, the capital. And it's something I've always been passionate about." Andy grinned. "That sounds perfect. If you need any business advice, I'm here." She smiled in return. "Thank you." In the following weeks, Helena took the first steps toward building her new enterprise. She scouted potential locations, consulted with curators and artists she respected, and found herself immersed in the creative world she'd adored since her youth. The energy of creation and curation replaced the gloom of betrayal. Occasionally, she'd catch mention of Jonathan in passing. The tabloids teased stories about him relocating to New York, trying to rebuild his empire in the States. She never bothered to read the full articles. His life was no longer her concern. And yes, there were times when loneliness struck. Late nights in her new flat, the city lights twinkling outside, she'd remember simpler moments with Jonathan, lazy Sundays, shared jokes, supportive hugs before big events. She'd wonder how it all went so wrong. But then she would remind herself of the lies, the affair, and the heartbreak. The man she once loved had shattered her trust beyond repair. Amid this emotional turbulence, she found small joys like choosing furniture for her new living space, discovering unique art pieces, and forming fresh friendships. She began volunteering at local art programs for underprivileged youth, channeling her pain into helping others find beauty and expression. Day by day, she healed, rediscovering her sense of self-worth. It wasn't an easy journey, but Helena learned that real strength often blossoms in the aftermath of heartbreak. She discovered that while money and status can offer comfort, they can't replace honesty, respect, and true partnership in a relationship. And most importantly, she learned to trust herself again, a gift she never expected to find in the ruins of her marriage. 6 months later, Helena stood in the center of a spacious, light-filled gallery in the heart of London's artistic district. Canvases adorned the pristine white walls, showcasing works by emerging talents she had personally discovered. The gallery's soft opening was underway, and a respectable crowd had gathered to appreciate the art, nibble on hors d'oeuvres, and raise glasses of bubbly. Dressed in a simple yet elegant black sheath dress, Helena floated from one guest to another, exuding calm confidence. She stopped to chat with a young painter named Sophia Park, whose bold, abstract pieces were garnering attention. Sophia was beaming, and Helena felt a surge of pride, remembering how nervous the artist had been just a few weeks prior. "You were right, Helena," Sophia said, eyes shining. "This exposure is life-changing." Helena squeezed her shoulder affectionately. "Your talent speaks for itself, Sophia. I'm just happy to help shine a light on it." The evening felt surreal. She recalled how a year ago her life had revolved around Jonathan's schedule, social events catered to his business associates, and an unspoken tension that gnawed at her whenever he was absent for too long. Now she was standing in her own space, surrounded by people who admired her vision, not her husband's fortune. The difference was liberating. Around 7 o'clock, she spotted a familiar face, Robert Townsend, her former father-in-law figure in business, waving politely. She walked over, greeting him with genuine warmth. "Robert." "I'm honored you came," she said, offering him a handshake. He smiled, returning her handshake with a gentle squeeze. "I wouldn't miss it. Heard so much buzz about your new gallery." "And well, I'm proud of you, Helena." She felt her cheeks flush slightly. "Thank you. That means a lot coming from you." They strolled through the exhibit together, discussing art and business, but carefully skirting the topic of Jonathan. Eventually, though, Robert cleared his throat. "I've had minimal contact with Jonathan lately. Well, let's just say he's struggling. The press in New York is relentless, and potential partners are wary of him after the scandal." Helena nodded, a pang of sympathy stirring in her chest, despite everything. "I can imagine," she said quietly. "It's unfortunate that he couldn't see the value of integrity before it was too late." Robert sighed. "Indeed. But let's not dampen the mood. This is your night." He raised his glass in a small toast. "To new beginnings." She clinked her glass against his, feeling a genuine sense of gratitude. To new beginnings. As the evening wore on, Helena mingled with guests, delighting in the glowing compliments for the exhibit. At one point, she found herself at the refreshment table refilling a glass of champagne when Andy approached. He looked dapper in a charcoal suit, an excited grin lighting up his face. "The place is buzzing," he said, giving her a playful nudge. "Sold 2 pieces already, I hear." Helena laughed softly, a musical sound. "Yes, can you believe it? People are actually investing in these rising talents. It's exactly what I wanted to give them the chance they deserve." Andy toasted her. "Well, you're doing it. Helena Ashford, the art mogul in the making." She waved him off with a smile. Let's not go that far, but I do feel fulfilled. Like for the first time I'm doing something that aligns with who I am, not who I was trying to be for someone else. Andy's gaze was empathetic. I'm proud of you. And if Jonathan could see you now? She cut him off gently. He had his chance, Andy. Let's leave it at that. The two exchanged a look of mutual understanding. The name Jonathan now felt like a relic from another life, a reminder of how far she had come. By the time the event wound down, Helena stood by the gallery doors thanking each guest for attending. Her feet ached, her voice was hoarse from hours of conversation, but her spirit was light. When the last attendee left, Helena turned off the lights except for a single spotlight illuminating a painting near the entrance, a stunning portrait of a woman standing alone at the edge of a cliff, gazing at a fiery sunset. The painting resonated with her journey, the promise of something radiant beyond the horizon, discovered only after a painful precipice. She let out a deep breath and allowed the quiet of the gallery to envelop her. The echoes of the night's laughter and conversations lingered in the air. She felt a sense of peace, an unshakable certainty that she had made the right choices, no matter how painful they had been. Yes, she had lost a marriage, but she had gained herself in the process. The world had witnessed her heartbreak, but they also bore witness to her resilience, her rebirth. As she left the gallery, locking the door behind her, Helena gazed up at the moonlit London sky. In that silent moment, she embraced the truth. Happiness, genuine happiness, was within her reach, and she was well on her way to claiming it. Rumors continued to swirl about Helena's dramatic divorce and blossoming art career, so after much deliberation she decided to release a public statement. Her lawyer suggested it might help quell the incessant media chatter and give Helena the final word on the matter. A week after the gallery opening, Helena sat down at her desk, opened her laptop, and stared at the blinking cursor. She refused to hire a publicist to craft her statement. This was her voice, her truth, and she would speak from the heart. To those interested in my personal life, I would like to confirm that Jonathan Ashford and I have finalized our divorce. The decision was made after a period of significant personal distress and betrayal, and while it was painful, it was ultimately necessary. I appreciate those who have reached out with kind words and support. Our paths have diverged, and I choose to move forward in a way that brings me fulfillment and peace. I am focusing on my passion for art and the nurturing of emerging talents in the creative industry. My new gallery represents not just a professional venture, but a personal renaissance. I believe in second chances. Sometimes we give them to ourselves. I urge respect for my privacy and that of Jonathan Ashford. We have each borne the repercussions of our choices. Life moves on, and so do we. Thank you for understanding. She read it over, tears prickling her eyes at the memories evoked by the words. It was honest, concise, and gracious. She sent it to her lawyer, who approved immediately, and then released it through her social media channels and a few major publications. Predictably, tabloids tried to spin it, but she felt a sense of closure nonetheless. Messages of support poured in, friends from her university days, old colleagues, even strangers who had watched the scandal unfold and related to her strength. Helena's phone buzzed nonstop, but she chose not to respond to every well-wisher. She appreciated the empathy, but wanted her life to remain private. Jonathan, predictably, was nowhere to be found. Rumor had it he was holed up in Manhattan trying to salvage what was left of his empire. She wondered if he saw her statement, if he felt regret or remorse. But those questions no longer haunted her. She had drawn her line in the sand, and there was no going back. In a final act of release, Helena took the wedding photos along with the fancy gifts Jonathan had given her over the years, expensive watches, diamond earrings, and the like, and carefully packed them into a box. She didn't throw them away, but locked them away in storage. They were remnants of a different era, a chapter concluded. She had no desire to revisit that story, at least not for a long while. By the time she secured the last piece of tape on the box, she felt lighter. The final vestiges of her marriage were tucked away, making space for the woman she was becoming. Standing before the sealed memories, she thought of Clarissa's parting words. You deserved better than him. She understood now that the better she deserved was not necessarily another person, but a better version of herself, free from lies and full of hope. She closed the storage unit, turned the key in the lock, and walked away with measured strides. In her heart, a quiet certainty blossomed. The future was bright, and she was ready for it. Helena's journey over the following months was one of rebuilding and self-discovery. Her gallery thrived quickly, gaining traction as a hub for fresh avant-garde talent. Critically acclaimed art blogs praised her keen eye for undiscovered genius. A swirl of new artists reached out, hoping for a chance to exhibit under Helena's curatorial guidance. But it wasn't just her professional life that flourished. Helena reconnected with old friends she had lost touch with during her marriage's roller coaster. She spent evenings hosting intimate dinner parties filled with laughter and intellectual debate, rather than the stiff soirees that once characterized her social circle. She traveled to art festivals in Venice and Berlin, not to follow Jonathan on business, but to indulge her passion for creativity. In every corner of her life, she found renewal and purpose. One afternoon, as she strolled through Hyde Park, the sun warm on her face, Helena felt a subtle shift within her. She had been on her own for close to a year now. No secrets, no illusions, just a raw, honest existence. And while the memory of Jonathan's betrayal still stung, it no longer defined her. She was free to envision a future not limited by the constraints of who she had been in that marriage. Her mind wandered to the concept of trust. Could she ever truly trust again? The thought was daunting but not impossible. She considered that perhaps real trust begins within oneself. She now trusted her own judgment, her instincts and morals, which had become sharper through the trials she endured. Maybe that was enough for now. A chance meeting at a charity function one evening would test that theory. Dr. Michael Shaw, a philanthropist who specialized in humanitarian causes, introduced himself while they both admired a silent auction painting. His tall frame and approachable demeanor put her at ease. He asked thoughtful questions about her gallery, and she found herself genuinely intrigued by his work providing medical relief in impoverished regions. They spent half the evening engrossed in conversation discussing art, philanthropy, and travel. Helena felt a spark of excitement she hadn't experienced in years, a flutter in her stomach she'd almost forgotten. At the end of the night, Michael politely asked if they could continue the conversation over dinner sometime. She hesitated, a flicker of caution telling her to be wary of stepping back into the chaos of a romantic entanglement. Yet as she looked into his earnest eyes, she sensed no hidden agenda or arrogance, qualities she had come to despise in the circles she once inhabited. So with a heart steady yet open, she said yes. Their first date was casual coffee at a quaint bookstore, followed by a stroll along the Thames. He spoke passionately about his medical missions while she shared anecdotes of discovering raw talent in unexpected corners of the world. It felt refreshingly real. No flashy displays of wealth, no power plays, just two individuals connecting over shared ideals. Helena returned home that evening feeling a strange mix of elation and fear. Elation because she felt hope stirring for a new connection. Fear because she still bore scars from her past. Yet in the stillness of her chic apartment, she reminded herself she was no longer the woman who would allow herself to be overshadowed or deceived. She had evolved, found her voice, and refused to settle for anything less than genuine respect and authenticity. Day by day, as she got to know Michael, she realized that perhaps healing wasn't just about locking the past away, but allowing herself the freedom to create new memories. It was a risk, a leap of faith, really, but wasn't that what art, love, and life were all about? She closed her eyes and smiled, envisioning the next sunrise. The future, once murky and fraught with pain, now beckoned with a soft, hopeful glow. The horizon was hers to explore, and she intended to savor every moment. Thank you for joining me on this emotional roller coaster of heartbreak, redemption, and self-discovery. Helena's journey reminds us that life's darkest chapters can spark the brightest new beginnings, and that no betrayal or heartbreak can truly extinguish our inner light. If this story resonated with you, if it inspired you to find strength in your own struggles, or reminded you of the power of standing up for yourself, then I invite you to become part of this community. Like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe for more compelling stories that explore the resilience of the human spirit. Turn on your notifications so you never miss an upload, because here we delve into the raw, real, and inspiring moments that shape us. Remember, your journey isn't over when you stumble. It's just beginning when you stand back up. Stay brave and see you in the next video.